Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am back on the block. Did you miss me? Because I certainly missed you. Today, this is my grand introduction of the Black of the Berry podcast to you all. This has been something that's been in the works for quite some time. And I have quite a few things to do today, and I've been running behind because it's been a minute since I podcasted, so I actually had to go through my whole setup and all that stuff like that. So I'm gonna give you guys just not a lot today. I'm just gonna drop in, give you an introduction of who I am, what I'm doing, and what this podcast is about. And as you can already tell, um, Black history is something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's something I'm very passionate about, and something that I want to. I'm a truth seeker, and it's something that I want to share with the world. Because again, I've said it many times before, and I'll continue to say it. I'll shout it from the rooftops. There's no accurate world history. There's no accurate American history if there's not authentic Black history that's being taught and being shared. And we're in a day and age where there's a lot of misinformation and just a lot of ignorance surrounding um, the culture, right? So my goal is to be able to share this knowledge, share this information with all that will listen. This is not just for Black people. This is for all people. If you pinch yourself and you feel pain, this is for you. If you cut yourself and you bleed, this is for you. But in the process, I want to kind of, say that I'm grateful to be back. And this time being back is a little different. I've been through some things. I've dealt with some stuff, and this time around is different because I'm different, and I really am grateful that I had this opportunity to step out on this platform and talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. So really, the Black of the Berry was born from a desire to just, again, as I said, teach the truth of my culture, because we are in a day and an age where uh, Black history is being rewritten, deleted, edited, and downright just suppressed, banned. Um, but guess what? You can't ban the people. We've been here all along. We've been here all along. Our contributions are undeniable. And before I get started, I do want to, in this moment, I want to take the time to dedicate this podcast to my ancestors, to all of those who went before me, who lived the life that who only dreamt of the life that I'm living now. I acknowledge the many prayers that were prayed so that not only me, but our people could be where we are now. We are the prayers of our ancestors from yesterday. And I only want to bring glory. I only want to bring honor. Um, and even before that, it would be remiss of me if I did not give proper credit where it is due to God, to God, the head of my life, to my Lord and my Savior, Jesus Christ, because there would be no me without them. There would be no this if it wasn't for my belief and for my faith. So again, I just want to drop that little bit on you, and I'm grateful. And I want to say to you, if you're one of those people that you have something that you desire to do, a goal, a vision, a desire, a dream, a wish, or whatever, I wish for you the courage to step out. I want the courage for you to be bold enough to speak, the courage to not care what people call you. In my situation, courage to do this podcast, even in the face of being called racist, courage to not care what's going to happen in terms of I speak my voice, what comes after, that's not my problem. Learning how to acknowledge, speak, and honor truth in such a way that it's not being weaponized to harm anybody. But again, in all you're getting, get understanding. And if you want to understand Black history, then learn about Black history. About how can you hear if you don't have a teacher, right? So again, one of the first things that I do want to talk about, again, I'm not. This is just a brief introduction because I messed around. My time got away from me, and I do have a second podcast I'm working on too. This was mostly about getting in front of this camera, reintroducing myself to you guys, letting you know I'm here and I haven't gone anywhere. And moving forward, some of the goals that I have this podcast is I want to be able to bring guests on, but I've allowed myself to learn that you can't always wait for circumstances to be right. You can't wait for circumstances to align before you take that leap of faith. Sometimes you just have to leap and just trust and believe that God is gonna catch you, you know. But one of the first things that I want to talk about is we're gonna be looking at, and I don't know how far we're gonna get in it today, but we're gonna talk about the Atlantic slave trade versus the trans-Saharan or the sub-Saharan slave trade, because it's been said many times ignorantly and out of um, Some people just set a narrative because they want it to be what they want it to be. But the truth needs no proof, right? We should always acknowledge and honor the truth. And the truth is so essential. The truth has a way of speaking itself, even when we try to cover it up. Even when we try to cover it up. And there are those that, we talk about truth in a manner that is we only talk about it when it's convenient for us, but when it's uncomfortable for us, then we try to cover it up. And any altering of the truth, any deceiving of the truth, any covering up of the truth, any suppressing of the truth is nothing more than a lie, right? And so that's where I come in. I'm here to bring my information to the best of my willingness and my own understanding to share with you. And if I get something wrong, I don't have a problem with you fact checking me in the comments. I don't have a problem with that. But I do ask that you subscribe to the podcast. I ask that you like it, share it, and let's join this movement together, and let's go together. So again, we're talking about the Atlantic slave trade versus the sub-Saharan or the transatlantic slave trade. Now, the Atlantic slave trade, we all know, was the 15th to the 19th century. So those, it's about 400 or so years. And within the Atlantic slave trade, who was involved? We had European powers. There was Portugal, Britain, Spain, France, Netherlands, and African intermediaries in some cases. The intermediaries, they were the go-betweens. So it's been said that the Africans sold people into slavery too. Well, just because somebody did something doesn't mean that it's right for you to do it. One wrong is always going to be wrong if it initiated itself and began as a wrong. And two wrongs will never become right. So just because something else was patterned behind another portion of history was patterned by another section of history doesn't make it right. It's often said that history repeats itself, and that is not true. I've said this time and again, and I'm going to keep saying this. History does not repeat itself. We repeat history. And if I don't learn from my own history, then I'm destined and doomed to repeat that again, right? So again, let's just dive back in here. And I'm just so sick of this mouse of mine doing its own little thing, which I don't know what that's all about. Maybe it's not the mouse, maybe it's the keyboard. Okay, let's not worry about this. Just a moment. Let me turn this keyboard off. There we go. All right, so anyways, let's jump back in. Now, the European powers, Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, Netherlands, there were African intermediaries that sold their own people into slavery. Now, the key characteristics when I talk about chattel slavery is when people are treated like permanent property. That's the transatlantic slave trade that was very savage, that was very brutal, that brought about this very racist system that we live in today. Right? The same system that built this nation is the same system that's causing this nation to slowly rot from within, because what we don't deal with will eat us from the inside out, which is why it's important to talk about the uncomfortable things, which is why it's important for us to have these unsettling conversations. If it's not, the conversation has to be held in such a manner that we understand it may hurt. But in order to heal from a thing, I must first feel that thing. And we don't want to feel the darkness. We don't want to talk about the darkness. Why not? Because it exposes some truths about us as individuals. And it's nothing to be afraid of, but it's something that we should lean into. So again, chattel slavery was people treated as permanent property. It was a race-based system where blackness became tied to slavery. Blackness became tied to slavery. Back then and even now, slavery has reinvented itself, right? No, slavery hasn't reinvented itself, but the people that perpetrated the system have found a way to reinvent it so that it still profits them, even as the way it started out in the beginning as it was. All right, now, with the key characteristics in the transatlantic slave trade is the hereditary. Children are born into slavery automatically. If you're on the plantation, there's so many different directions I can go into this. I'll go with this. If you're born on the plantation, you're automatically born into slavery. You're not born free. There are countless generations, countless numbers of people, black people, that had no say in the matter and were automatically born into a system that not only denigrated them, but it told them they were something they were not, tried to make them assimilate into the thing they never were. You can make it. Let me say this way, and I hope this makes sense to somebody, because it certainly makes sense to me. I can try to make a dog believe it's a cat all day long, but at some point the true nature is going to eventually kick in, and the dog is going to be what it is, a dog. So you can try to bring Black people or Africans into this country and try to make them assimilate to your method, but at the end of the day, within the DNA is woven a truth. It's this memory, this knowledge of where I came from. So at some point, that is going to expose itself, because you can never truly suppress the truth. Again, it's about the Middle Passage. It was a brutal ocean journey with massive death rates. We already know about the number of people that died on these ships because of the conditions that were not favorable. The raining, the diseases that were prevalent, like the colds, the cholera. I don't know all the diseases, but we know that the diseases that took people out. A lot of people didn't make it. They threw the sickly overboard. Some willingly jumped overboard, because I would rather go to death than to live as a slave. Imagine that. I would rather go to my death than to live as a slave. And this system has created generations of trauma. And there are those that understand and know that, because I'm going to say this way. How can you say that all the fine institutions were created by the elite, yet claim ignorance, when education from a psychological perspective tells you things that are not dealt with find a funny way of oozing to the surface, whether it's through traumas or whatever the case may be. It alters the psyche of individuals. So how can we expect something to be anything other than what it was? And this trauma undealt with, unchecked, it persists, and it turns itself or manifests in the form of generational curses. The thing that grandma did, mama did, and I don't understand why I'm doing it. But then when I really start connecting with the history and the culture of my people, I understand that Ray would tilt his head to the left when he was lying, and all of a sudden I don't understand why it passed down to me that when I lie, I'm tilting my head to the left too. That's an exaggerated form. But again, they tasted sour grapes. My teeth are set on edge. Why? Because I'm doing the same thing they were doing. Because the memory in it and the trauma that is passed down. But we don't want to talk about that. And the only way to make this nation better as a nation is to confront all the people that make the nation what it is. So again, plantation economy. This is what the transatlantic slave trade was about, a plantation economy. Labor for sugar, cotton, and tobacco. Remember, cotton is king. And then we're growing tobacco and sugar, these crops that birthed an early nation on the backs of and at the expense of the humanity of Black people. So the things that set this nation up economically and financially, we want to pretend that the people that were the slaves that were forced into this brutal system that made this nation what it is, all of a sudden the contributions are not moot. It's a moot point, and we can't do that. If it was good then, it's good now. It stung then, it still stings now, because the thing is always going to be what it is. It's not anything other than what it is. You can't call slavery by any other name, because it is what it is. So again, now on the scale and the brutality of the transatlantic slave trade, there were 12 to 15 million 12 to 15 million Africans that were transported. Now this is between the 15th and the 19th centuries. So 12 to 15 million Africans transported. Although some African countries served as intermediaries, let me go scriptural for just a moment. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil. And we see the different movies that really don't depict history accurately, but we see that it's all about capitalism. It's all about commerce, because somebody, the love of money, had a greed or a love of money. And it's not money. Money's not evil, because if it is, if you're listening to this podcast, I can give you a bank account that you can wire your funds into, and I'll be more than happy to live off your evil money, because it's not the money, it's the love of. So again, we got 12 to 15 million Africans that were transported, and of that, in this system that's based on capitalism, linked to the greed of Europeans, the people that decided, hey, let's go over here and let's break bread with these African nations, and let's get them to give them, because at the end of the day, you have to sweeten the pot. It is inhumane of anybody. It's inhumane of the Europeans to seek out that type of slavery or that type of labor, and it's inhumane for the African nations to play the part that they played in implementing and shaping the system into what it became. So they're major players. All these countries have a part. The African nations, and yes, the Europeans as well. Now, the Africans sold their own people into slavery, but they did not continue harsh treatment and harsh punishment. Millions died during capture, during transport, and enslavement. So we're not talking about the number of people that actually died in slavery. We're talking about the ones who died in the process of being made to be something that they were just not born to be. And the ways in which that has to destroy an individual's psyche, and how that gets passed along, muscle memory, just things that we can't understand unless we seek out the information to help us understand. But we're not going to try to understand the thing that we're afraid of. I'm not afraid of the truth. The truth is always welcome. It needs no proof, and a lie doesn't care who tells it. Now, I'm just pointing out the key characteristics of this is the transatlantic slave trade, and we're going to jump into the trans-Saharan. I'm not going to stay on this really too long, because I got a few minutes. I got to get out of here, and I'm going to do this justice. I will be more well prepared next time I come. And again, I'm just giving you the highlights, and I'm giving you just enough to wet your willy. So I guess I shouldn't say wet your willy, but I'm giving you just enough to create a hunger and to create an appetite for more, because that's what the truth does. It has a way of being so powerful that the truth will make you want even more. Now, with the trans-Saharan or the sub-Saharan slave trade, this is the 7th through the 19th century. So you see, it covers a larger period of time. So you're looking at roughly about 1,300 years, as opposed to the 15th to the 19th century, which is 400 to 500 years. So we're looking at 400 years of slavery, as opposed to a period about 3 times longer, right? Now, in the sub-Saharan slave trade, who was involved? There were North African and Arab traders. North African and Arab traders. And notice this period of time, we're looking at the Atlantic slave trade came in the 15th to the 19th centuries. The sub-Saharan or the trans-Saharan slave trade came in the 12th to the 19th centuries. That's a huge gap. So we're looking at Arab and African slave traders. But we're being told that Black people were not there in the beginning. If we weren't there in the beginning, then why is the narrative and the argument, well, the Africans were trading slaves longer? Okay, but if we weren't there, how can we do what we weren't present to be able to do, unless your lie or your narrative is a lie to take the heat off the fact that you, as the colonizers that you became, in terms of Europeans, in terms of the lesser colored complexion, i.e. white, you weren't there in the beginning. So suddenly the lie starts to fall apart. The Black people weren't there in the beginning. We've always been there. And this is the difference in the two systems of slavery, okay? The sub-Saharan, we noticed that the first was about chattel slavery, and that you were not born free. If you were born on the plantation, you were automatically a slave. You would never know freedom. You never know freedom. And even freedom was an illusion. And I'll circle back and talk about this in terms of how even with sharecropping, it looked like you were free, but you weren't free. The money was still caught up with the plantation, with master. But anyways, we're going to keep going. Who was involved in the trans-Saharan? It was the North African and Arab traders, Islamic empires, which varied over time, trade routes across the Sahara and into the Middle East. Now, the key characteristics, was not strictly race-based, though Africans were heavily targeted. Now, why were Africans heavily targeted in the first slave trade? And they were the primary targets of the second slave trade. Could it be because there was such a more superior DNA makeup? These are just questions I'm asking. Just consider those things. There were varied roles: domestic servants, soldiers. The latter slave trade didn't have those. Why? Because the treatment of the slaves, they would not allow them to be soldiers to have weapons, because the weapons would have been turned on the slave owners. But I digress. During the previous slave trade, the sub-Saharan, domestic servants, soldiers, administrators, and concubines. There were concubines in the latter, but not in the same sense. There was a lot of depravity and immoral things that happened in the second slave trade that was patterned after the first. But see, the history didn't repeat itself. It's the people that repeated the history and did a lot of evil things, vile things, which is how you can have a group of people that can be named in lists like, oh, I don't know, say like the Epstein list or the Epstein files, but we won't talk about that because this is about Black history. I digress. Anyways, there was some social mobility. Some enslaved people could gain freedom or status. Some enslaved people could gain social freedom or status, something that was denied in the transatlantic slave trade. So understand the difference. There was better treatment in the prior as opposed to the latter. It was not always hereditary. Children were not always automatically born into slavery. Children were born knowing that one day they were going to be free. Caravan transport across desert routes, scale and conditions, estimated millions over centuries, and the numbers have been debated. The brutal conditions, especially desert crossing, were structured differently than the Atlantic slave trade. Heat in the desert, drowning deaths, jumping overboard. Because I'm not going to this strange land far, far away to become something I was never meant to become. I don't know what's about to happen to me, but I know it's not good because the treatment I'm getting now. If they treat me this terribly now, I can only imagine what it's going to be when I reach the destination to where they're taking me. It's not typically plantation-based. The Trans-Saharan was not typically plantation-based. It was not plantation-based mass labor like it was here in the Americas. So these are key differences. And we have Google nowadays. We have ChatGPT. We have Gemini. We have Siri. We have things that can give us the information that we need to find the truth for ourselves. But the thing is, do I really want the truth, or do I want to just continue to perpetuate the lie because I'm comfortable with that? Again, 4:39, I can barely see. And then what I really want to do, because I'm going to look at the core differences, but I don't really want to jump into the core differences right now. I really want to just basically stop in, give you an introduction to the podcast, give you an introduction to me. And I don't really want to jump into the core differences right now because it's going to be weighty, it's going to be meaty, and that'll be the continuation. This is going to be part 2 of the Black of the Berry. I've gotten this started now, the momentum, I feel it. I'm grateful. I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm committed to what I'm doing, and I understand that if I keep pushing, I'm walking in purpose. I'm walking in purpose, and I want you to walk with me. So again, this has been the first few minutes. It's been 24 quick minutes of the introduction of who I am, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, why it's so important. And I hope that you guys will like. I hope you will subscribe. I hope you will share what you see. And I hope you just stay with me, interact with me, fact check me in the comments. If there's anything you want to talk about from a Black history perspective, by all means, feel free to share that. But again, thank you for being on this journey with me. I'm looking forward to doing greater, even more. This concludes this episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. And it's been so long since I've done this, I've forgotten how to end in the podcast. But anyways, again, let's try this again. This concludes this brief introduction to the podcast. I'll see you next week. I can't say the same time, but it will be the same day. Thanks for stopping. Thank you for stopping by with me and for being on this journey. Looking forward to the ride.